Welcome. In front of me I have the HUAWEI Nova 13, and today I'll go over unboxing along with a quick look at the device and also its specifications. So, getting straight into it. I am not going to be nice to this device, as I just consider this to be kind of like a scam from Huawei, like most of their devices are at this point. And I'll go a little bit more into depth in my reasoning for this, but let's just get straight into it. In terms of design though, it looks pretty nice. Come on. There we go. As you can see, we have pretty interesting design right here, with a very Apple-like kind of design almost all around outside of just the back. The back isn't Apple-like, but the shape of the phone, the curvatures, the display just kind of gives me a bit more Apple vibes than I would like. But it's Huawei, that's what they've been doing. Now, below that we have our little pen flip. If you're in China, you don't really care about this. If you're anywhere else in the world, you probably might, as you might be dependent on Google Play Store, and this device does not have any kind of Google Play Store. Meaning that if you can't find an application on the app gallery, like we have right here, that means that you're forced to have a second phone that is running Google Play Store, and you install that application on an old phone and then move it using the phone clone application to this one, because it still uses APKs. It just doesn't have access to Play Store. Now, below that, we have our case. Just a clear silicone one, nothing special, and paperwork. And then in this oversized box, all we have is a charging cable and no charger included. Now, moving to the device itself, you can see the bezels right here. They are okay, I would say, for what this device should be priced at. For what it offers. So these are pretty modern looking. I'm not gonna really take away from that, but considering this device costs about 350 euros, it's a little bit expensive for what it actually offers in terms of just like entire package, not just looking at the bezels or anything like that, taking in consideration everything. So let me explain. Display wise, here we'll have a okay display, can't complain about it. It's an OLED display, 120 Hz refresh rate with HDR support, though it doesn't have HDR10 plus, meaning it just doesn't have any kind of certifications. And we have a 89% screen to body ratio and just below 400 pixels per inch, covered with a glass being, again, I need to take a moment to try to pronounce this, aluminum silicone glass. That's a mouthful for me. In any case, display-wise, it's a pretty good display. Now, when we flip it over, we have what looks to be almost a triple camera setup. I can already almost tell, I'm pretty sure that this right here next to the flash is just a dud, just a blackness for the sake of making you think that it's a camera. And let's see if I'm correct looking at the specs. Well, would you look at that? I am. So we have a 50 megapixel f1.9 wide aperture wide sensor and 8 megapixel ultra wide that does 4K and 1080p. Though even on the Huawei website, it doesn't mention what the 4K frame rate is, nor the 1080p, which is great. Awesome. So it can record 20 frames for all we know, or you can just buy it and test it out. And then at the front, we have a whopping 60 megapixel selfie that also does 4K, though here we actually have a mention. It's 30 frames and 1080p 30 frames. These informations are being taken from gsmarena.com, and their track record is pretty good for information. Not always accurate, but I would say 99% of the time it is correct. And if I go to Huawei website right now, let's see, just so I am certain that it's not mentioned right here. So back, it just says the megapixels and resolution up to 8K apparently. Those are for photos, and video resolution up to 4K, and it doesn't mention the frame rate. And for the selfie, same thing, up to 4K, no frame rate mentioned. Awesome. Okay. So there is lacking information in terms of capabilities of the camera, which if you're buying this device, you're probably buying it because of the cameras. And lacking in this kind of information is just a bit of a scammy kind of move, because if you're buying a phone for cameras, it would be nice to actually know what you're getting. Oh boy, always disappoints. I have to say, for some time I've been very disappointed with the Huawei's. Now, moving on into the internals, where the device kind of just a little bit picks up. We have a 5000 mAh battery. The device is relatively thin, so that's an okay battery size, even when we include the new battery type being the silicone ones, which would probably put it closer to like 5500 based on the size of this phone. But apart from the 5000 mAh battery, we do also have a whopping 100 watt wired charging, which more than doubles the charging speed of brand new Samsung Galaxy's S25 Ultra, which is the highest end model right now that Samsung offers. That does only 45. This more than doubles that, which I do want to point that out. And just like Samsung, it doesn't come with a charger though. Moving on, we have 12 gigabytes of RAM, which is pretty good. So that will basically mean that you can have a bunch of applications open in the background and they won't be closing out. So you need to, whenever you're switching between apps, you shouldn't really need to wait for the apps to like load up again, as there's enough RAM to keep them open for with a lot of other apps running in the background. We also have 256 gigs of storage out of the box. And it can be spec'd up to 1 terabyte, though it's not mentioning what kind of storage type that will be. Now, moving on to the crappier things about the phone. We have a... where was it? Processor Kirin 8000, which is an octa-core processor that has been... Let me actually quickly check something. I think this is the same processor that Mate 20 Pro uses, right? Nope, never mind. Kirin 980 is the Mate 20 Pro. But in any case, if I can, looking at the specifications for this specific processor, I find information about it on nanoreview.net, and that says that Snapdragon 888, which is at this point like a 5-year-old processor, outperforms this one in literally everything: gaming, performance, battery. So it really makes me kind of question, how is this phone released in 2024 with such a piss poor processor if it's being outperformed by a Snapdragon 888 from like 5 years ago? Now, I want to also point out that this information might not be necessarily fully accurate. I haven't run benchmarks myself of this device, so take that with a grain of salt. You might want to like do your own due diligence to know how fast this is, but I'm pointing that out, the speed of this processor, because there are other alternatives of other devices. If you don't mind having worse camera experience, then you have probably right here, because we do have 60 megapixels like selfie, which these phones from Huawei I think are catering more towards just selfie taking. So with that in mind, there are other alternatives that might not be as good at taking selfies, but will offer you in general much better package. And one of those standout phones would be the CMF Phone 1 from Nothing. That device basically outperforms this one, has the same kind of display, being a AMOLED, 120 Hz refresh rate with HDR, all that jazz, with a much faster processor being the Dimensity 7300, and RAM, you can get it up to basically the same kind of specifications, but the defining factor is the fact that it will cost less than $250 or euros. They're about the same, while this costs more than 300. So not only do you pay more, you get less. So CMF Phone 1 seems like a much better deal when compared. Might not be as premium feeling, but in terms of performance and what you get for the money, I think it's just a no-brainer. Anyway, with that being said, hopefully you found this video helpful, and if you did, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.